everyone, and welcome to the Speakers Bank podcast, Our Voices, Our Views. This time you have me, Mimi Lorilia, manning the fort, and it's not my team of podcasters joining the guests today. We are organizing a series of interviews with our previous podcasters or podcast teams, Speakers Bank teams from different universities and RTOs, because it's time for us to check in with them to see where they're at and to see whether we have, made a little bit of a contribution in their professional lives. So in this room, in this particular episode, we have Kim, McAnsh, and Phan, and I would like to get you ladies to greet our viewers today. Whoever wants to greet first.
Linley?
Okay. So hello everyone, my name's Lynn. So I did placement with Mimi at Speakers Bank in 2019. At the moment we're still currently studying at VU, or for myself, I'm still studying at VU, so I've got a few more units to do before I can move on to graduating and finding my next career path. So yeah, that's about it from me. Kim?
My name's Kimberly, and I did my placement at Speakers Bank. I did it with Lynn. We did it together, which was an enjoyable experience. I have finished all of my study theory part. I'm waiting to start my second placement at the moment, so hence I'm not doing a lot, so I can join in on Mimi's podcast and speak to the people about work experience with Mimi.
Yes, fantastic. Well, thank you, ladies. To tell you honestly, I must admit, I've missed you. I've missed you both. You're one of the very few teams that I've worked with that is so different from everyone else, because I found that, you have the drive. You have two different skill sets. You admit to your weaknesses and to your strengths, but you are like the yin and the yang. When you were together, it kind of went really, really well, and it gelled really, really well. And I also enjoyed working with you because you're both go-getters. Some of the things that I've asked you to do, you've never done it before, but then you gave it a go and you went along with the flow, and then you challenged yourself to do a lot, and then at the end of it, you were still on a high. It feels like we've had this natural, whatever you call that, adrenaline high at the end of the placement. You wish that you could go on and on, but obviously there's a limit to the time that you can spend with Speakers Bank. Let's recall that time. Let's go back in time and put yourself back in the shoes of when you started. Can you share with me individually some of your uncertainties or the things that you were worried about at the beginning of the placement because you were not sure what this placement would look like for you? So just for those who will be undergoing placement, for example, somebody just watched us not knowing what the placement would look like. This is very valuable information that we can give them. So Kim, would you like to start and tell me a little bit about what you didn't know when you first started the placement and what you thought it would look like for you?
Okay, so before I started placement, and I had seen the advertisement for placement at Speakers Bank, and I thought it was just a strange placement. I was like, why are you going to work with people or something about speaking? And I had no idea of sort of what it was. So when I had my first interview with you, it was far more informative than perhaps what was on the website, through VU. So some of my fears, perhaps before starting placement, were the people that I would be working with, the people with the disabilities, and one of my fears was to meet these people and not know what their disabilities were, and perhaps they would feel that I was being perhaps condescending to them or not treating them as an equal or something like that. And so my fears were probably because I have had I haven't had a lot of experience working with people with a disability, and I know a few people in my personal life with a disability and get along with them great, but because it wasn't one particular disability, it's a broad range, and we didn't actually know what the disabilities each person had, which I think was a good thing for Lynn and I. Lynn might have a difference of opinion. It was good because we met these people, and they, I suppose, because they weren't labelled with any particular disability, then they were able to lead the way that they wanted to be treated by us. And I felt meeting and working with all of the speakers that we formed more friendships than perhaps we were helping them to do something.
Right.
That was probably my biggest fear, and then not knowing what we were going to do. And then slowly I learned along the way that what we might be doing one time would completely change what we thought we would do, but that was part of the enjoyable part of the ride for me, that it was never the same. We always did different things, and things could chop and change, and you went with the flow. It sort of worked really well. If you tried to fight against that, then it didn't necessarily.
It's going to be harder for you. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Good insights there, Kim. What about you, Lynn? What was it like for you when you first started with the placement?
So first starting with the placement, I feel that I had the same feelings that Kim did as well. I wasn't sure what this placement would provide to me. My understanding is there's a speaking aspect of the placement, helping the people with a disability with their speaking gigs, and then also having the opportunity to work alongside the people with the disabilities. But I didn't think there'd be anything more in depth to that than that. But I guess after having the interview with you, you gave us a lot of insight, a lot of flexibility of what we wanted to do. You asked us what we would want to gain out of this placement, and you did this with everyone, where you generated lists of what you thought was important to do, certain tasks that people wanted to do, and then you sort of mesh it all together and see how that fits within your within Speakers Bank, and that's what you did with Kim and I. So in terms of things changing all the time, I guess that's sort of like working in the industry of community service. Things are going to chop and change, and you just go along with the ride. But it was exciting that, we'll start doing something, and then maybe we'll urgently need to be called to do something else. Then we're, taken away from that task and we're off doing something else. But it was really good that we got a lot of flexibility to do a lot of different things and get exposure to a lot of different things. We were organising the fundraiser. We were helping these people with a disability alongside their speaking gigs. We did the home visits for the updating of the website for all of those people in Speakers Bank. And then we also went to a lot of different seminars and working workshops just to learn a bit more about disability as a whole. Because like Kimberly was saying, as myself, I haven't been exposed to many people with a disability. So I think it was a really good insight into what disability is like. Even though Speakers Bank isn't predominantly about people with a disability, it was good to have that little knowledge, sort of like dipping your toes into what disability looks like.
That's good. It's good to have this kind of reflection moment, because at the heat of it all, when we were doing all those sort of stuff, we were busy doing stuff, and we haven't been able to really reflect. We've done a lot of debriefing sessions or meetings just to check if we've done what we set out to do. But it's really different now that you've stepped away completely from the placement. So any one of you can answer this next question of mine. So now that you've mentioned what you first thought about the placement, what are some of the skills that you have learned along the way which you think are really valuable now in terms of your future career, or at least in your immediate skill set? What you found that, it's good that I learned this from my work placement, so it helps me now with whatever current thing it is that you're doing. So anybody would like to address that?
For me, one of the things I did learn was that not necessarily is it the people with the disability that are holding things up. There's a lot of office politics that can hold things up. So I think I thought, that there would be a slow process because some people perhaps couldn't do things or they would need more support to be able to do something. But what I found was that, the people that we worked with, they were a little bit like had superpowers because they taught me that like the things that I suppose being able-bodied, I just don't think of. So that would be one of the things that, sort of I learned, and I will take that, like having a disability doesn't necessarily mean it's not a bad thing. Doesn't mean you're not capable. And then, so when I talk about the office politics, that was some of the delays with getting things done, not necessarily the people we were working with. So I will take, it's not always the, I don't know the right word to use because I don't want to say vulnerable or the people who don't know as much because the people we worked with knew so. That's probably one of the biggest things that I will take with me. Sometimes it's just the workers that get in the way.
So it's something like the systemic overarching structures that are in place that are beyond our human control that kind of causes some of the delays in the work that we do. Okay.
Definitely.
What about you, Lynn? Any thoughts or perspectives around that?
I think mine's a little bit different, but I think after working at the placement, I just felt very inspired by people who are living with a disability, just their drive to do better, to achieve things, to just do things as a normal able-bodied person would do. I think that's amazing because not saying that people who are able-bodied aren't driven in life, but just knowing that they're trying so hard to do everything they possibly can to feel like they belong and can adjust into society. I think that's just so amazing because at the end of the day, they still are people. So they shouldn't feel like there's this pressure on them to do so much to be able to fit into society because they are already accepted into a society. But just, some of the knowledge that they share, some of the challenges they've overcome, to get to where they are now, I think that's just really amazing.
Yeah, and they could still continue to inspire us even though we're all on lockdown at the moment.
Yeah.
I still keep in touch with them. I still try to update them with what's happening behind the scenes because they're so used to being at the front, but now kind of everybody pushed back. So I need to continuously remind them that, hey, even though we're in the middle of all this pandemic situation, you are still as valuable and you can still work in other different ways. So it's not limited to just the speaking. They can also help with mentoring and advising and doing some of the back end stuff. So I'm doing a lot of surveys at the moment, report writing and other things, information that's being collected to help us, make better decisions moving forward. What are we doing with the online space? Are we moving into that space because of what's happening around us? Things of that nature. So really your inputs now are helping me kind of put into perspective what other things we can do with the speakers. So aside from the skills that you learned or the things that you've reflected upon when you were here, do you feel that you are more job ready now as a result of your placement and the things that you've learned? Do you feel you're more empowered with all your practical experiences as a result of the placement?
I do, and that was part working at Speakers Bank and part working alongside Lynn. Lynn, there were things that I learned from doing my placement with Lynn that, because Lynn is quite a bit younger than me, she just knows how to do. So I feel like I gained a lot of skills from doing the placement with somebody who was younger than me, and then working with the speakers, that sort of has empowered me to perhaps not look at people when you see disability, often people think can't do or things like that. So it's it's changed the way I look at people with a disability, as in the disability doesn't actually matter. So I feel like I could work with people with a disability now, having had done my placement, because my experience with all of the people or the speakers was great. It was really good. So I do feel I could do something working with people with a disability. And I don't like saying working with people with a disability, because it's like you're somehow helping them, whereas it's more working alongside people with a disability.
That's right.
Whatever support that they may need to be able to, get on and do what it is they want to do.
That's right. Yeah. And any thing to add in terms of that perspective, Lynn?
Yeah, so I think, like Kimberly said, I think when you were saying that Kim and I are the yin and the yang, I think that was a really big learning curve for Kim and I, because prior to this, we hadn't worked together a whole lot. So it was all very new to us, that we just sort of found this middle ground for the both of us where we just worked very harmoniously together, and it was really good to bounce a lot of ideas and job share between the two of us, because I think we just both had a general understanding of what was the goal that we needed to achieve and the workload that we needed to handle. And I think that was really good, because Kim and I learned a lot from one another in that whole experience, and I think we would have never learned all that stuff about one another if we hadn't done the placement together. Mm-hmm. In terms of being job ready, I guess what I learned in Speakers Bank is you just don't know what's going to come next. And I think I'm going to take that learning away when I start getting myself job ready, that, I've got to learn to be a lot more flexible, to, move with the waves of the organisation, because everything's going to change all the time. The current situation we're in right now, like, who would have thought in the last 6 months that this was all going to happen? So yeah, you just have to move with the changes and be flexible.
Yep, that's right. So one of the key things in the community services space is there's no such thing as the fear of the unknown, because everything that you might be doing is you're already swimming in a sea of the unknown. So what's the point of being scared about it? You're still expected to do everything head on, just approach everything with open eyes, fresh perspective, and just go along with it, and be ready for a very exciting ride. I think that's what the lesson is all about. So overall, in your experience, it's been a positive work placement for you both. But is there any other thing that you would be advising to people who are still sitting on the fence in terms of what they wanted to do, the course they wanted to take, and for those who are still not ready to do work placement, what's your advice for those people? Because a lot of us are studying at the moment while we're on lockdown. So maybe we have people listening to us that might be interested in doing something like what you did.
Are you talking about doing placement at Speakers Bank?
Well, you can talk about Speakers Bank or work placement in general, because some people are not sure whether taking a course with a component of a work placement will work for them. Some of them think that the theory is sufficient to get them job ready, while others have this idea that no, it has to have the whole works.
I think the placement is far more. You will learn far more doing a placement than you will the theory. You can apply the theory during the placement, but when you are working sort of with, I want to say, when I talk about you, you're quite an expert in what you do, and you wear so many hats. And I was talking, we had in our one of our couple of last classes, we had another class join us, and they hadn't done their placement. yeah, and I was talking about placement at Speakers Bank, and what you actually learn. And I think it is just at Speakers Bank though, because I haven't done another placement. I started one, but because you are so inclusive, because you are willing to listen to other people's ideas, I've never thought of you as you think you are the expert, you know how to do everything. So I think that was such a good thing doing placement at Speakers Bank, but doing placement in general, I think is so important to go along with what you learn in theory, to be able to apply those skills that you do learn. And sometimes you learn the hard way, sometimes it's easier, but I think when you're thrown in the deep end, as Lynn and I perhaps, were, a few times, that was really good for us. But kind of the same in the way that, you just got to get the job done. So if it's not working this way, then you try something new, and we just sort of, that's how it worked for us. But it was really good for us doing the placement, or for me doing the placement.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. What about you, Lynn?
I think with placement, I think it's such an important component of studying. I think that the theory is theory, but you can't apply it to anything if you haven't had a chance to do a placement. Do people really want to just do theory and then just be thrown into a workplace where you have to meet, KPIs and targets and everything like that? I think you'd want to at least do a placement first, dip your toes in the water, get that experience so that because I think the placement time is when you're trying to figure out what organization suits you the best.
Yeah.
Because you might have your heart set out on doing, aged care, and then you do the placement and then you realize, I hate aged care, I need to move somewhere else. So I think the placement's the best place to, do the learning, make the mistakes, apply your theory to the workplace. So placement is definitely an important component, and I think everyone should be open-minded to placement, because just like Speakers Bank, we didn't know anything about what we were going to do, and the ideas that we had thought of and your flexibility allowed us to be able to do all these different tasks that we would have probably never thought we would do at Speakers Bank. But and that's why I think people should be open-minded to working at different placement organizations that they probably wouldn't have put themselves into, because I think you'd be surprised about what you're going to learn and the tasks you're going to do, because you're not going to be able to know by reading it off a description ad stating what you're going to learn. I think you just need to put yourself out there, be open-minded, and then just be open to learning anything you can, because all those skills will be transferable and you'll be able to use them in any organization that you work at.
That's right. I think that's the key word there, is anything and everything that you've learned is transferable. It may not be realized straight away, but you can offer that and you can tell them about that during your job interview. And you're also right, Lynn, in the fact that I've heard some students say, I've come in here thinking about X, but now as I go through the placement, I'm thinking about doing Y. So they're already trying to evolve and think about a wider array of opportunities that might be available for them. And I think that's also one of the benefits of undergoing placement, is that you're not limited or locked into what you initially thought that you'd like to do, which will definitely open wider, bigger doors for you. Anyway, I really want to continue chatting with you ladies, because it's very interesting the way the discussion is going on, but there's only a limit, as you know, with the time that we have in terms of the podcast. So I really wanted to thank you, Kim and Lynn, for sharing your perspectives. And I hope this is not the last time that we'll be in touch, because I know that you are just an email away and that I can always reach out to you and ask you for help. So any last thoughts and the things you want to say before I formally end our show today?
No, thank you for giving me the opportunity to do placement at Speakers Bank. It was a fun ride. I learnt a lot, and it was a really good placement for my first placement, because it there weren't any wrongs, so it didn't matter sort of what we did as long as we got the job done. So we didn't have any wrongs. We just had lots of learning, lots of fun. So I'm really grateful for doing my placement at Speakers Bank.
Thank you. Lynn?
Yeah, and thank you to you, Mimi, because we all know you're the superwoman because you are doing 20 million things at once all the time.
It's 30 million now, Lynn.
Yes, 30 million. We all know you are you are a crazy superwoman. I don't know how you do it. But you've been great. I just watch you in awe trying to do 30 million things at once. I just can't believe it. But yeah, you were great. You taught us so much. Transferable skills. I'll be able to take this anywhere I go.
Yep, that's fantastic to hear. And maybe the next time we have a chat, it will be 40 million things because you guys are no longer my, wing women.
No, we want the number to drop, not increase.
Yes, hopefully I'm less stressed now with working from home, but I'm finding it very difficult to juggle being a mom, doing your chores, and then working and doing Zoom meetings and things like that. But hey, that's our new normal, which we have to go through at the moment. So again, thank you very much. So this is Mimi signing off for our podcast episode with Lynn and Kim of Victoria University. Thank you all for watching. And until the next episode, bye for now. Bye. Wave, ladies. That's our way to say goodbye. Bye.